Hey up, it's that old Yorkshire geek here, and it's not Friday, is it? It's Saturday, I'm late this week. But it's time for a review of Picard Season 2, Episode 9. I can't remember the episode title, but it's crap. Anyway, the episode is absolute garbage. Perhaps the worst written Star Trek episode maybe I've ever seen in my life. It is rubbish. Anyway, we start off, we have the usual recap and all that. Yeah, whatever. We're at the La Serena in France, in the permanent night of France, until we get to the end and then it becomes daytime. But every time we've seen the La Serena in the vineyard in France with no, not cloaked or anything, it's just there in the middle of the, for anybody to see in the vineyard. What's happened to that policeman that they knocked out and dragged out, I don't know. Nobody's been to find him or to look for him. But anyway, we're there at the nighttime La Serena, as usual at nighttime. Anyway, all these drones beaming. Rios looks out the... they don't have view screens now in Star Trek, do they? They've got windows. They've got cockpit windows or bridge windows. They don't have bloody view screens. Because I hate modern Star Trek. Anyway... he looks out and he sees Borg drones beaming in. How are they beaming in? I have no idea. Because the transporter on the La Serena is broken. He said it's not operational. Is the Borg Queen somehow making it operational? If it's operational for her, why isn't it operational for him? I don't know. But they're beaming. But they don't beam in the La Serena transporters. They're beaming all green, with Borg transporters. So does the Borg Queen have a built-in transporter system? Don't know. What happens then? Anyway, yeah, they get on board. And the Agni Borg, I've started to call her. Agnes the Borg Queen. She's Agni Borg. She beams in a tattered red dress. And Rios and the Doctor and her son, they run away. And basically, they just ignore them for some reason. So next time we see Agnes, she's nude. She's no clothes on. Don't see her from the front, just see her from the back. And she goes to the, obviously the La Serena's got a morgue. Because we had drawers. We've got a drawer with Elnor in, now we've got a drawer with the Borg Queen in. It's got a pretty good morgue for a small ship. She opens it up and there's the dead Borg Queen. Well, the top half of her anyway. And Agnes puts some Borg tubules into the Borg Queen and just assimilates her clothes for some reason. I was expecting her to become, more Borgified and have more tubes coming out of her head, looking more like the Borg Queen. But no, she just gets her clothes and they look rubbish anyway. It doesn't look like she's wearing some clothes. It doesn't look like it's part of her, like it did with the Borg Queen. The clothing or whatever. It wasn't clothing, was it? It was like an exosuit, wasn't it? Like basically a robot body she had, wasn't she? But no, this is just clothes, and it doesn't look good. It's like an ill-fitting, off-the-shelf cosplay. As I've written in my notes, I've got notes. Can you hear them? On paper, for a change. So I've watched the episode twice. First time I watched it, and I thought it was crap. I thought I'll watch it again and I'll take notes. And there's a lot. I've got 4 sides of notes, and it's pretty much all negative. Anyway, then back in the chateau, the nighttime chateau, Tallinn uses a smoky transporter to beam in the crew to Chateau Picard, and then Rios appears with the Doctor and her son. And I'm just wondering, how did they get there without being caught by the Borg? Because we've just seen loads of Borg beaming into the vineyard surrounding the La Serena. How did they get through? Obviously, they're not very attentive, these Borg, because later on in the episode, Raffi and Seven do a sprint through, and they make it. Obviously rubbish. The Borg that are in the vineyard are the rubbish ones. They're not Borg though. They are, because Seven says they are. But they're these special forces soldiers that have been like assimilated by Agni Borg. So I'm calling them Merc Borg, like mercenaries. Now then, what have I written in my notes? Why did all those Special Forces mercs just allow themselves to be assimilated? Yeah, because we saw in the end of the last episode, Agnes just walk up to one of them and assimilate him, basically. And they all just stood and watched. Why didn't they open fire on her? Don't know. These are Special Forces, the best of the best, sir. No, just did it. Just let her do it. And in my notes as well, I reckon Patrick Stewart wrote all this and the writer's room dare not change anything in case he has the Queen of England chop off their heads. Which is probably true. I think it's true. Thanks, Pat, for ruining the great character and franchise that made you famous, which it did. It made him famous, and now he's just dismantling it before our very eyes with his creative control that he's got, creative powers. It's not all him, I know, but... right, anyway, so what happens? Then we go back to the La Sirena, and Agnes and the Borg Queen are internally arguing. So we see the Borg Queen, as the Borg Queen, and we see Agnes as Agnes. And they're arguing, within, with a lot of, how would you describe it? Whedon-esque dialogue, snarky, witty, in quotes, witty dialogue. And it's rubbish. It's rubbish. They're trying to be like, Buffy or, Serenity. Not Serenity, Firefly. But it's just not working. It's not working. It's just rubbish. Then Agnes, the Borg Queen finds that she can't access the ship systems because Agnes has set up a fractal lock. And I thought the point of a fractal lock was that it were unbreakable because it was like a random setting. But I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. I suppose you've got to have some way to switch it off, haven't you? If you need be. But anyway, Agnes says that she hasn't memorised the code herself. She's put it into a hologram of Elnor, and a hologram of Elnor appears. For some reason, this hologram of Elnor is wearing a mobile emitter, like the Doctor wore in Voyager. And I'm thinking, why is he wearing a mobile emitter when, on the La Sirena, the whole ship's got emitters, because the whole crew, Rios as a whole crew, were holograms, weren't they? So, why does Elnor need a mobile emitter? I mean, who put it there to start with? Because on the Voyager, the Doctor's mobile emitter was on like a charging station, and then they'd pick it up and activate him, and then he'd appear, wouldn't he? It'd appear on his arm. So where did this mobile emitter, appear from? But anyway, apart from that, the mobile emitter is, I can't remember, is it 29th century or 27th century? It's from the future of Voyager anyway. Several hundred years in the future of Voyager that they got, actually, ironically, in the past. They got it in the 21st century. It's 29th century, isn't it? Because it's from the... what's his face? The time chap. What's his name? Captain. I can't remember his name. Him anyway. Not a very good review, is this? Is it? I'm doing a lot of women and ahhing, even though I've got my notes. Anyway. So basically the mobile emitter shouldn't be there because the La Sirena that we see is from the Confederacy timeline. It's not from the Prime timeline. So the Voyager wouldn't have gone to Delta Quadrant and then gone back in time and then got the mobile emitter from the chap, the industrialist, whose name again I can't remember. So it shouldn't be there, basically. Right, anyway, so unless it's just a different version, I don't know, but they don't explain it, so they just put it there because they think it's an Easter egg. They think people go, "Ooh, look, it's got a mobile emitter," and not think they shouldn't have a mobile emitter. The ship's full of holographic emitters, so it shouldn't be there anyway. Anyway, so right, right. So we go back to the chateau, and the Merc Borg are attacking, and for some reason, it seems like their weapons have become Borgified because they've suddenly got green lasers that make the Borg noise, as the sweep backwards and forwards, but they're still firing bullets. They're not firing energy bolts. I don't know. Maybe the Borg bullets. I don't know. Anyway, one of them throws like a flash bomb, flash bang, whatever they call them, and it goes off, and in the flash, Picard decides to have a daydream. So he has a daydream, back as a child at the chateau, and he's playing with a toy, which, if you look closely, it's actually the NX-01 refit that we're going to be used in season 5, apparently, of Enterprise. Apparently, but I didn't notice that at the time. I only know that because Doug Drexler put it on Facebook. So. Anyway, so his dad Maurice and his mother Yvette, who calls Maurice, but she don't call him that. She calls him Maurice. She doesn't put a French accent on at all. But never mind. They're talking about her illness basically, and I'm thinking, why isn't she getting treatment for this illness? She's obviously, she's got psychiatric problems. Why isn't she getting treatment? And also, if she's becoming kind of dangerous, maybe this is the early stages. I don't know, because it doesn't explain anything. If it's the early stages, then fair enough. Maybe she's under review or whatever, and going to go see somebody, and all this, what happens in this episode happens quite quickly over, say, a day and a night. I don't know, but it's the 24th century. I think they forget also that it's the 24th century, despite them showing Picard with a model of the NX-01 refit. I think Patrick Stewart thinks that Picard lived in some Victorian dream, like in Generations, when he goes into the Nexus and he's in like a Victorian Christmas. Oh God, I hate that bit. Generations is a bad film. If you cut all that bit out, it's okay. But anyway, yeah, why ain't she getting treatment? It's the 24th century. Apparently, things like this in the 24th century are easily cured. I think even by the 23rd century, mental illnesses were quite easily cured. It's said, in the original series, I do believe. Right, what else? Next up, right, back at the chateau, Rios gets injured. He gets shot in the arm. Somehow the bullet stays in his arm. I don't know how, but from a rifle, what they call them, assault weapon gun. It doesn't go through his arm. It just bullet lodges in his arm. So Picard orders Talon to beam him back to Los Angeles, to her office in Los Angeles. For safety, Rios and the Doctor and her son. So she does that, and then he tells her to turn it off, so he can't beam back. How would he know how to beam back? Remember, Talon's some, agent from the future, a Romulan agent from the future, no less. I don't know which future. I can't remember, but how far in the future, I don't know. But and we find when he beams back, this is a little bit later on, but I'll say it now. Somehow Rios can hack this future technology quite easily. It doesn't take him very long. And also, the Doctor again shows how she can use future technology when she uses a tricorder. I don't know how she uses a tricorder to get the bullet out of his arm. I don't know how. Maybe it just shows her where it is, and she just goes diving in with some tweezers. I don't know, but what else? Then we go back to the Chateau Picard, and the battle's going on. They're surrounded by Borg, and then Seven has a great idea. She says we should split up and divide and conquer. I'm not exactly sure that's what divide and conquer means, Seven. You don't divide and conquer, because that doesn't make sense. I mean, there's only, how many is there? There's 4 of you. So that doesn't make sense. If you mean to divide and conquer the enemy, divide your enemy and conquer them, well, you're outnumbered like, 20 to 1, something like that. There's a lot more Borg than you, so I think 4 of you, if you split into 2 groups, isn't going to make a great deal of difference that way, but it probably sounded good on paper. So that's what they decide to do, and Picard and Talon go one way, and Raffi and Seven go another way. And we see Adam Soong, played by Brent Spiner, is leading the drones, I'll call them drones, Merc Borgs, into battle. Don't know why. Why is he leading him into battle? Don't know. I mean, he's just a scientist. He's not a soldier, is he? And speaking of the battle, it's remember Game of Thrones season 8, that battle at Winterfell, and it was so dark you couldn't see what was going on. It's a bit like that here. You can't see what's going on because it's too dark. But never mind. Oh, by the way, the Merkborgs are rubbish at shooting. You'd think if they've been, they've got Borg enhancements, they'd be really good shots, wouldn't you? You think they'd have like internal sensors that can pick out, heat signatures and shoot at them. But no, they just shoot. They just seem to be firing blindly in all directions. They've been to what my note said. Merkborg went to stormtrooper shooting school. Yeah, I'm sure they did. Then what? Then we see lots of these Borg laser beams, flashing around. But then they all disappear, and then just one Merkborg, comes through the window and starts fighting Raffi and Seven. None of the others do, just this one. So the fighting, he's got a knife, and so they're fighting hand to hand, and they overpower him and stab him in the head. Oh, wow, by the way, earlier on, Seven had said, they're not human, they're Borg. What's that supposed to mean? Didn't Seven watch season 1? Remember that Borg cube where they were in the process of changing the drones back into whatever race they were, taking the Borg implants out of them and freeing them from the Borg. They weren't Borg anymore, were they? So why are these these disposable bad guys are not human anymore? Unbelievable. Yes, anyway, so they murder this one, they stab him in the head, it's quite, it doesn't show it obviously, but the sound effects, and it's, you get a gruesome image in your mind. Then what? Right, Picard and Tallinn go into the tunnels beneath the chateau. There's like a secret door, and he turns this thing on in this like bookcase, and it's you can slide it open, and they can go to these tunnels, and he closes it behind him. I think then Picard has another like flashback of his mother taking him to play hide and seek, and she takes him into the tunnels, and I think this is the time that we saw in the earlier episode where Picard gets stuck, gets lost there, and it takes his father hours to find him. His mother leaves him. I think this is that, what we're seeing, but just from a different perspective. And I don't know why, if Picard's mother's so ill, why is Maurice allowing us to spend time alone with Picard? Maybe he don't think she's dangerous. I don't know. As I said, maybe this is the first time that she's done anything like this. I don't know. But anyway. Oh, during this time, by the way, after they kill this Merkborg, they start looking for weapons. Don't know why they don't take whatever the mercenary had. But anyway, Raffi says to Seven, why didn't she join Starfleet? Because she says she's acting like a captain. She's giving orders and stuff and strategies and all that. And Seven says she tried. After Voyager, she tried to join Starfleet, but they refused her because she was Borg. Raffi says that, because you were Borg, and Seven doesn't like say yes, but you get that's the implication. And I'm thinking, what? Why would Starfleet refuse 7 of 9? Who's been like one of the main crew people on Voyager for like 4 years really. Why would they allow her not to join Starfleet, or at least go to the academy or do some academy training, or become an enlisted crew person? I mean, they allowed Picard. Picard became a Borg, didn't he? Became Locutus of Borg. They allowed him to resume his duties once they'd taken all the implants away. And what about Icheb? I keep calling him Icheb. It's Icheb, isn't it? We see Icheb get his Borg eye ripped out in season 1 by them bad guys, and he were wearing a Starfleet uniform, so he obviously were in Starfleet, so they didn't rebuff him, did they? So maybe it was just 7 that they didn't like. Maybe she didn't do well in the interview. But apparently Janeway, said she'd resign if they didn't allow Seven into Starfleet, but it didn't make any difference, and Janeway didn't resign, so she didn't keep her word, did she? I hate it. I hate the writers. It does me head in. The writers, speaking of Icheb, we see him in a Starfleet uniform. So the writers of this series obviously don't know their own continuity. They just forget things. They're rubbish, and I hate it, and it gets on my nerves. Then what happens? So they're looking for weapons. Never mind what this Borg that they've just killed. Didn't he have a weapon with him? I mean, they all seem to have machine guns. Didn't he have a machine gun? Maybe it got broken, I don't know. So they look for weapons. They find a knife and a corkscrew. That's all they can find. A knife and a corkscrew. That's all they could find. There was a bloody shotgun on one of the room's walls a few episodes ago. Why wasn't there anything else lying about that were better than a knife and a corkscrew? Anyway, they decide that they're just gonna make a run for it across the fields. Not fields, but it's a vineyard, isn't it? Through the vines, the rows of vines, to the La Serena. Through, she says, a dozen Borg. Maybe there is that many, I don't know. Armed with only a knife and a corkscrew, and so they set off, and it shows it from above, and we see him take out a couple of the Borg, and all the other Borg are just shooting in all different directions. It's dead stupid. It's so stupid. And they make it. So we see they arrive at the La Serena, they just appear. You think, for crying out, these Merc Borgs are absolutely useless. Anyway, then it goes back to the La Serena, and we see Elnor hologram going through. He's got the armour in. He's going looking for weapons, and he eschews firearms. He finds these, phasers and phaser rifles. Don't want them. He just picks his sword instead. And, fair enough. Whatever. Because we see the Borg and these Merc Borg shooting at him, but he's like dodging at these shots. And why? Why is he dodging? It's a hologram. Surely they can make it so that he can make his form so that things just pass through him until he needs to fight them, up close, and then he can, make himself solid. I don't know. I suppose if he made himself, intangible, he'd drop his sword, wouldn't he? So might he just hologram himself a sword? Because it's stupid. Anyway, what else? I'm back at the chateau. Adam soon easily finds the entrance to the tunnels because he sees this bookcase and the scrape on the floor and the little turny dial thing that Picard had turned. Obviously, it doesn't turn back. It didn't lock itself back into place afterwards. When they closed the bookcase, it stayed open. So he just pulls it open. Well, that's not very good, is it? You'd thought it'd have locked itself, wouldn't you? If it's a secret tunnel, that's supposed to be used to escape from bad people, which it was used for in the past. They said, Picard daydreams again. Yvette, his mother, I think it's Yvette, it is, isn't it? Yeah. She's describing space and the vast distances between the stars and how the light from the stars takes billions of years to get to Earth. Well, it does if in other galaxies, I suppose. And I'm just sat there thinking, why didn't this writer who wrote this write for Star Trek Discovery? Because they have no idea about distances between stars. Everything happens instantaneously on Discovery. But whatever. Right, what else? Picard they're in the tunnels, and they're in this room that he's remembering his mother telling him this space information, and he's saying he recognises it, and I'm just thinking it's strange how this chateau that remains unchanged, virtually unchanged for like 400 years. Everything's the same. Then what happens? Then Maurice locks Yvette away in a room. He drags her away and locks her in a room for her own safety. But Picard, the young Picard, lets her out, and she goes and hangs herself. We see that later on. But Spoilers, I'll tell you now. She hangs herself, so Picard feels guilty about it. What next? Oh, aye, then the Merkborgs appear, come round the corner. Anyway, Picard just rummages about in a box that is just there on the side, picks out a World War II pistol, I don't know what it is, a Luger or whatever, I don't know, and starts shooting at them with it, because it works. It's just sat there for 80 years. Unbelievable. But then again, as I said before, it had a shotgun on that had been on the wall for 80 years, and Agnes used that to kill the Borg Queen, didn't she? So obviously the French know how to make weapons that don't need maintenance. Oh, what next? Oh, aye, then Raffi and Seven, obviously they've got through the the cordon of Merkborgs, which was no use whatsoever. And they get back on the Lacerena, and they come across the Elnor hologram, and Raffi thinks it's him for a minute, and then he says, "No, I'm a hologram." But somehow he's got all of Elnor's memories, because earlier on we found out that the Lacerena could make a hologram of anybody who's been on board. Agnes said this, and I don't know how she knew this. Maybe it's because she was part Borg, she'd been in the computers, I don't know. Because remember, this isn't the Lacerena from the normal timeline, this is the Lacerena from the Confederacy timeline, which Captain Rios, who was a Confederacy officer, was using, to fight the Confederacy's battle. So it wasn't the same ship. It was a similar ship, yeah, but it's not exactly the same ship. But anyway, then what? Elnor said he'd got Elnor's memories right up until his death. Don't know how. And so he said, right up until before he died, he felt only love for Raffi and all that. She shouldn't feel guilty. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Don't care. Seven tells him she needs access to the system. Somehow she knows that he can give him access to the system. And he does. He unlocks the system for him so Seven can get to the transporters. And then Seven beams some Merkborgs into the tunnel walls. Picard and Tallinn just walk round a corner, and then suddenly there's a beaming noise, and they look round, and these Merkborgs are just beamed into the walls, and they're dead. So they're there 400 years later. Then when Picard's a kid exploring the tunnels or whatever, or anybody who's in the tunnels, in the 24th century, they'll go around the corner and find all these dead Borg in the walls. Will they? Yeah, probably, because this is still the prime timeline. It hasn't changed yet, has it? Because the Europa mission's still on. So it hasn't converged yet. Right, so what next? Oh, aye, Elnor and Agneborg, they start fighting. And they're punching and all this stuff, And Elnor's grunting, it's fighting and puffing and blowing and grunting and all that. I'm thinking, why? He's a hologram. It's not real. I mean, maybe he's been programmed, to act more human and pretend to grunt. I don't know. But whatever. Right, next up. Still my notes. Still got my notes. Right, what's next? Oh, yes. Elnor, he bests Agneborg, knocks her down, and then the other Elnor and Seven and Raffi stand around her with the weapons, aimed at her. And Seven says, "Agnes, I know you're in there." So she knows Agnes is in there. She's been assimilated by the Borg Queen. What about all them, mercenaries, them special forces soldiers, or whatever, that have just been assimilated by the Borg? Weren't they in there as well? Obviously not, because they're just disposable men, aren't they? There were women, actually. At the end of the previous episode, there were some special forces women, but we don't see any of those in this episode. I didn't notice any anyway, unless there was some in the background, but I won't pay that much attention. Agneborg somehow turns off Elnor. She just puts a tentacle out and it goes into Elnor and turns him off. How? I don't know. Why didn't she do that to start with? When they were fighting and grunting and stuff. Why didn't she just do that to start with? Don't know. Then what? Then she uses her tentacles, these tentacles flapping about. She knocks Raffi about, and then she stabs Seven in gut, and Seven like falls to the deck, twitching and going. Ah! Then Agneborg says, she says to the computer, set a course for the Delta Quadrant, and she's going to go and prepare, going back to the Borg and prepare for the future, basically, so that they don't get wiped out by the Confederacy or the Federation or whatever. That's what she's going to do. I think it'll still take her like 60 years or whatever to reach Borg space from Earth, but whatever. Whatever. She says, we've got 400 years to prepare, but no, you've got 300 years really. It'll take you that long to get back there. But they don't know that. When they wrote that, they thought she'd just go into warp and then she'd immediately get to Borg space, because they've no idea. Picard and Tallinn, they emerge from the tunnels in he calls it the solarium, does Picard. I would always calling it the conservatory, but he calls it the solarium. They appear in there out the tunnels, and so almost immediately to be followed by Adam Soong and 2 Merkborgs who are pointing guns at our heroes. Then what happens? Then we cut back to the La Serena, and Agneborg she tries to stab Seven, but Agnes internally stops her, and then they have a back and forth. Then it goes to showing us the Borg Queen and Agnes talking to each other. And Agnes basically persuades the Borg Queen to make the Borg into nice people. The Borg go woke, I suppose you could say. That's the way they want to do it. So in the future, when she goes back, she's going to turn the Borg into a race that will only assimilate people who want to be assimilated. They have to give their consent. A bit like that, when did I wrote it down? They'll only assimilate willing participants, a bit like the EU General Data Protection Regulation consent thing. That when you go on the website and all these annoying consent things pop up saying, do you consent to us using cookies and all that, and you've got to click on accept and all that, whatever. Basically, it's one of them, but with the Borg. It's unbelievable. So, there you go. So that's the Borg ruin for you. The Star Trek's greatest foe just turned into, weak, wishy-washy, crappy. Oh, I hate it. It's rubbish. So thanks, Patrick. You've done that as well. You've not only destroyed Jean-Luc Picard and his legacy, you've also ruined the Borg, the great enemy. Not by, defeating them, in some clever way. You've just persuaded them in a single conversation just to be nice. Oh, God. Anyway, then what? Right, then we go back to the solarium. It sounds too much like a ice cream or an ice lolly solarium. And Brent Spiner's there, hamming it up. He's a rubbish actor. He just plays himself, like a lot of actors. They just play themselves, don't they? And he's the same, always the same. He's playing the same role he did in Enterprise as Auric Sung, and probably, to be honest, is a bit like the same as when he played Law in Next Generation. When he's not Data, he's just that. He's just playing, the bad version of Data, basically. Then he tells the Merkborgs to kill Picard, so they obviously just stand there for a while we cut back to Rios and the Doctor and her son, who's tucked in bed apparently. He's in shock for some reason, because they were in a battle. And Rios gets the transporter working, and then he beams back in the smoke. You can't call it beaming because it's just like a cloud of smoke in it, but he smokes back, shoots a gun at the one of the Merkborgs, disintegrates him, and as he disintegrates, a big ornate key just drops to the floor for some reason. Don't know why. Well, I don't know why, it's for story reasons. Oh, and then it cuts back. So we're doing a lot backwards and forwards. They're trying to, keep the action going. We're cutting backwards and forwards. Agneborg gets her tentacles out again and Borg tubules and injects tubules into Seven. And Raffi says, "Oh no, you're killing her," but she's not. She's basically curing her. She heals up a wound, and for some reason gives Seven all of the Borg implants that she had before. When in the Prime timeline, all the Borg implants appear in the places that they were, on her face and the hands. For some reason, I don't know why. How does that cure a stomach wound? I don't know. But I don't know. But obviously, this isn't this body that Seven's inhabiting isn't the body from the original timeline. This is the Confederacy timeline that's come from the Confederacy timeline, not the Prime timeline. So I don't know. Anyway, so we've got 7 of 9 back, with the Borg bits. Even though it doesn't really make a great deal of difference, because she was more or less the same when she wasn't Borg. I didn't have a Borg implant. She was still the same, wasn't she? They still called her Seven. They didn't call her Annika. Only her husband, I think, called her that before he was murdered by them earlier on in the season. Oh, then what? Then we go back to Soong. The fight? What's his face? Rios. Rios Rios shot his phaser and vaporized, one of the Merc Borgs, and he dropped for some reason it didn't vaporize the key that drops to the floor. Then he starts fighting hand to hand with the other one. I don't know why he didn't shoot him as well. And he drops the phaser he had, which is one of Tallin's phasers, and Soong picks that up. Rios, defeats the Merc Borg. Well, he doesn't defeat it; like knocks him away, and then that Borg just kind of walks off. He just walks off screen, and we never see him again. Just vanishes. I don't know where he goes. And then Soong picks up the Tallinn phaser, and the one that reminds me of Soren's phaser in Star Trek Generations. Yeah. But anyway, picks that up, and then he says he's going to kill him, and then for some reason Rios just tells him that if it's not coded for your DNA and you hold it for too long, it'll explode. So that gives Soong chance to throw it into the air, and it blows up in the air. And now we're thinking, why didn't he just not say anything and have Soong taken out of the picture? Then I'd at least blown his hand off. But then I'm thinking, no, actually, this shows that Rios is probably the best character in the series, is the most Star Trek character, the best Starfleet officer in the series. So there you go. Soong's gone. He's run off. So I'm thinking, I'm just checking my notes again. Soong runs away, and I'm thinking, right, so how's he going to get back now? Remember, they're in France. How is he going to get back to Los Angeles in time for the Europa mission launch? How is he going to get back in time for that? It's 24. It's only 2024. You can't beam there, can he now? The Queen Borg's buggered off in the La Serena. The only beaming technology now is Tallinn's smoky beaming thing, and I don't think you wouldn't think that he'd use that because he can't, can he? So he's going to have to hop on a plane, and how long will it take to get from France to Los Angeles? Quite a while. A full day at least, I should imagine. That's just in travel time, I should imagine. I don't know. And then there's, waiting about at airports. It'll take a while. But we'll see. I bet he don't. I bet he just appears in Los Angeles next episode. So that's Soong out of the way for now. Then we go back to the La Serena, and Agneborg is... it's all nice. She's all nice now. You can see she's all nice. She's saying nice things. They give her the ship. Seven says it... in a little bit. Seven says it's her ship, because Rios says that that's my ship. And she says, no, it's my ship. And I'm saying, no, it's his ship. But it's not either of them's ship, really. But it's more his ship, because this is the Confederacy La Sirena, not the Prime La Sirena, which Seven, were using. We saw it at the beginning of the series. Anyway, and then Picard's telling about his mother hanging herself, and he's watching, but as we're watching, it's playing in reverse, so he sees her hanging there, and then she undoes the rope and then walks backwards into a room. And then, so I'm thinking, who put that rope there? Because it didn't show her throwing a rope up first. But then Picard just found her hanging, so maybe she'd done it before he got there. Well, obviously, she had done. Then what? Oh yeah, the key that the mercenary dropped just happened to be a skeleton key that opened all the doors in Chateau Picard, and that's the key that Picard used to unlock his mother's bedroom door to let her out, so she could go hang herself. So he feels all guilty about that. But Tallinn tells him, oh no, you're alright, whatever. Don't be guilty, it's all part of life, and life's super ace, blah blah blah. Then Picard says, after his mother died, he imagined her as an old woman drinking tea and asking him for a chat. And I'm thinking, see, they're trying to write in there, are they referring to the episode, the Next Generation season 1 episode, where no one has gone before, when Picard sees a vision of his mother as an old woman drinking tea. But she has a French accent in that, and she doesn't in this. Maybe imagined a French accent as well, even though I suspect that Yvette might not have even been French. Because remember, the Picards lived in England, didn't they, for a long time before they moved back to the chateau. But whatever. They were probably thinking, though, being super clever, putting in an Easter egg, that for somebody like me to notice, but. I think it's just shit, innit? It's just shit. Oh, then we see young Picard goes into the solarium and smashes all the windows. Well, don't smash them all, just throws a stone and smashes loads of windows with one stone. And then, so I'm thinking, were they never repaired? Because I think we saw them in the future, didn't we? In the 25th century, it's still broken. And I'm thinking, well, Robert and his wife, whose name escapes me, and young René, Picard's nephew, their son, lived there for years and years and years, didn't they? Picard just visited occasionally. They lived there for donkey's years, running the vineyard before Picard took over, after they died in a horrific fire. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it's so ridiculous. So why didn't Robert even bother to have the windows fixed? Don't know. And he seemed the sort of person that would have got it fixed and would have sorted it out. But he didn't. And then what? By the way, it's daytime now. It's become daytime. So we're at daytime. Now that the La Sirena's sodded off, sun comes up. Don't know where that policeman is, by the way. Still nobody's come looking for him. Oh my, the Queen had earlier said, before she sods off, the Queen had said that the Europa mission, to succeed, there has to be 2 Renés, one that lives and one that dies. What does she mean by that? Don't know. I mean, the only other René we know is Picard's young nephew, who I've just said dies horribly in a fire along with his dad. We don't know if his mother dies. We just say Robert and René get killed in a fire. But that's in the 24th century, hundreds of years from now. So how that has any bearing on this René and the Europa mission in the 21st century, I don't know. And, then the Queen takes the La Sirena. I think the beam. She beams Raffi and I think she beams them out. Raffi and Seven. I think she beams them out. And La Sirena takes off. Obviously, it's all fully functional now. Takes off and flies off. And it warps away. Nobody sees it. Obviously, there were no Vulcans passing at the time to pick up the warp, the warp signature, and have first contact early. Well, that only happened because the ship just happened. A Vulcan ship in 2063, a Vulcan ship just happens to be passing through the Sol system and picks up Cochrane's warp trail, doesn't it? Warp drive, whatever. So obviously that's not happening this time. So anyway, so that ship's sodded off. So how are they going to get back to the 25th century now? That were their means to get back. How are they going to get back now? Is Q going to click them back? They can't click at the moment, can it? So I don't know. They'll find another way. Does Tallinn somehow send them back to the 25th century? Can she do that? I don't know. Or, and this is where I'm thinking, maybe giving too much credit to the writers, do the Next Generation crew get a ship, somehow know what's happened, get a message maybe they leave a message for them, to pass through time, and they bring a ship back at the beginning of season 3. I bet that's what happens. See, I'm thinking now. My mind's going. I bet the next episode, the last episode, I bet the beat Sung, because he'll somehow manage to get back to LA. They'll beat him. The Europa mission will go off without a hitch. The timeline will be restored. And I think, well, how do we get back to the future? And one of them will say, Picard probably will say, well, we'll leave a message for them to find in the future, and a set of coordinates, and they'll cut temporal coordinates, and then they'll come back in time to pick us up. And that's what the Next Generation crew will do in season 3. I bet that's what happens. Or am I giving the writers too much credit? Is that too good an idea for them to think of themselves? Anyway, so that's how the episode ends. So with one episode to go. This episode was absolute garbage. It was rubbish. Lots of silly things in it. Lots of silly things that make you go, what? I hated it. It was rubbish. I won't give it a none out of 10 like Angry Joe did. So I'm just shuffling my notes like a newsreader. Or I won't give it a 0.1 out of 10 like Bird of Prey 5 did. Because I don't give scores out of 10. But it was rubbish. It's probably the worst episode of Star Trek ever. And there's some stinkers in there. And I've said that 2 weeks in a row now. So somehow they're besting themselves at the worst episodes. It was absolute rubbish. So anyway, so we'll leave it there until next week with the final episode of season 2. Will it all go as I suggested? I don't know, probably not. So until next week, wherever you are in the world, look after each other, and I'll see thee.